I'm not starting. Now go.
Good morning. My name is Franklin Roosevelt. My birthday is on 30th of January. I born in Hudson-Valley town of Hyde Park, New York. My father, James Roosevelt, and my mother, Sarah and Darrell, were each come from well-off New York families. I was their only child. My father was 54 years old when I was born. I went to Harvard University, from which I graduated in 1904. While I was at Harvard, my fifth cousin, Theodore Roosevelt, became president. I entered Columbia Law School in 1904, but I dropped out in 1907 because I had passed in the New York State Bar exam. In 1908, I took a job in Wall Street. I met my wife in 1902. On 17th of March 1905, I married Anna Eleanor. After that, we have 6 children. I became assistant secretary of the Navy in 1930, and 7 years later, I resigned to run for vice president, but I failed. In the summer of 1921, I have a vacation in Canada. I got polio. Was not immediately diagnosed. I was almost totally paralyzed. However, and had to be moved to New York for treatment. In fact, I would never recover the use of my legs. An ability that seemed to end of my political career, but I never gave up. While at Warm Spring in 1928, I was called to a political duty again. I began the 4 years of my New York governorship that were preliminary to my presidency. And since I was re-elected 2 years later, I was the candidate in 1932. I won 57% of the vote. Since 1929, the nation has been sunk in the worst depression of its history. And Howard Hoover's Republican administration had failed to find a way to recovery. The election campaign was conducted under the shadow of Great Depression in the United. Industry was paralyzed, and unemployment athletic some 30% of the New York force. The economic downward until the banking system began a complete nationwide shutdown as Hoover term ended. I was inaugurated 4th of March 1933. A quarter of the workforce was unemployed. Farmers were in deep trouble as prices fell by 16%. Industrial production had been filled by more than half since 1929. 2 million people are homeless. I used New Deal to reform the United States. After 1934, congressional elections, which give me large majority in both houses, there was a fresh surge of New Deal legislation. These measures, including the Works Progress Administration, which set up a national relief agency that that employed 2 million family had. In the 1936 presidential election, I campaigned my New Deal programs against others. When the economy began to worsen again in late 1937, I responded with an aggressive program asking Congress for $5 billion for WPA, means the Works Programs Administration, Relief and Public Works. My third team was dominated by World War II. The military built up economic growth. By 1941, unemployment had fallen to under 1 million. On 7th of December 1941, the Japanese attacked the U.S. Pacific Fleet Pearl Harbor. In 1944 election, Truman and me won 53% of the vote and carried 33 seats against New York Governor Thomas. On the 29th of March 1945, before the World War II ended, I died.